As a two more personal anecdotes before we sort of get into this, and then I'll maybe start by saying the whole next hour and a half, and it doesn't even need to take that long. We'll see how long it takes. A lot of that'll depend on your engagement, your questions. We want those. We won't have an answer for everything, but we certainly want to make sure we can capture it and make sure we're understanding how our messages are resonating and what's coming through. But John Pierce and I are going to talk both about, I'm going to spend some time talking about the general agency, how we're seeing it going forward, why we think it has value, what's kind of led us down this path, how are we going to think about success, where are we at today, where are we going, and tee up John for some discussion on some of the programs that he's creating, and also tee up some other dialogues that Kelly McCartney will be having and Rick Hawk on technology, and some of the other sessions that are happening throughout the next day and a half. So I will try intentionally not to take everything away from all of their presentations, but ultimately we're going to try to get to answering as many of those questions as we can. But first off, I want to acknowledge something that from a personal why, and I have worked at a lot of different insurance organizations in my career and been very proud to work for some very fine insurance companies, things that have big brands and have been successful. What Scott talked about in the last 45 minutes or so before the break is the primary reason why I'm here. And I think why a lot of people on JM's team that are working towards some of the positive changes and some of that disruptive change that we're working on is because Scott's leadership and the senior leadership of JM, the board, the senior executive team, intentionally disrupting ourselves and looking at this from a lens of customer and value and creating value. A lot of other companies are not quite, I don't think, where we're at in terms of thinking about customer, thinking about how to create value, and thinking about the long-term consequences of doing that. And, we have a tremendous brand, as Scott said, tremendous focus on the jewelry space and an understanding of risk and insurance and now shipping. But we're learning all sorts of things, and there's no one better positioned to bring value beyond insurance than the group in this room. I really believe that, and it's not by accident that we have Marty up here talking about the jeweler and the customer, because we're starting to spend more and more of our energy, and I think as we should, understanding them so that we can see those value points and we can start to be a part of the solution, whether it's something we build or somebody we go get and bring to the industry and bring that value. So I just wanted to tie that back because I think everything that Scott talked about in the morning about being disruptive and not wanting to fail to execute the way AT&T did is what drives us every day and what makes me excited, gets me up in the morning. The other personal anecdote that I wanted to share is the power of this room and the people in it, and just the positivity and the energy and how much better I feel as a result of being here with all of you. Some of you may know that I took my family on a vacation over the holidays where we went to the United Arab Emirates, went to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Some people ask me, what the heck were you thinking about? We had a great time, wonderful country, lots of cool things to do, beaches, sand, wonderful. Right up until the point where I caught COVID and couldn't go home, all right? So my wife and daughters got on a plane and went home, and I got to spend an extra 10 days in Dubai in a hotel room by myself. Yeah. Now, there are parts of my life, and maybe you've had some of the same, where you are say, give me 10 days by myself in a hotel room in Dubai and I'll be just fine, okay? I'll tell you my reality was I felt highly disconnected. I felt alone, stressed. I felt like a lot of things weren't working. I had a lot of negative thoughts and it was not fun. Not fun for a second. And this moment for me personally is incredibly, it's actually very refreshing. It's very fulfilling and it gives me energy and it makes me feel a lot better. And it's the connection of the people in the room. It's the team that we work with, but also by extension, all of you as our partners and working to serve our customers. So I hope you guys feel that too, because this is something that's key to everything we're doing. As much technology as we want to add into everything, you heard Scott talk about the personal relationships, bringing that to our customers. That's also critical. I'm not trying to get away from that. Those are all core tenets to everything, and I'll touch a little bit on that. But I just felt, I try not to script things too much because it's important, that we keep the flow of the meeting. And I thought what Scott was saying was important to reiterate. And as I was thinking about just last night and how we've gotten going to this morning, how important it's been for me. So I'm excited to talk about partner solutions. We don't have everything figured out, but we have a lot of reasons why we're doing certain things, and we think it's going to add more and more value over time. And part of the reason we don't have everything figured out and why we've invited you to help us in that journey is because we value your input and your thoughts. So when you have questions, we had a great dialogue with the AAC yesterday, which was fantastic. A lot of new thinking, a lot of new viewpoints coming from people who hadn't had that opportunity in the past, which was great. And we're going to continue to engage that. So a little bit start from sort of why. Scott teed up a lot of it, right? Talked a little bit about commercial when he first arrived 5 or 7 years ago, flat or shrinking premiums, some profit issues, right? I'm not going to get too much into it, more beyond that, but that little red trend line, what you're seeing there on that graph, I know it's tough to read, is JBT's annual listings, which is the number of jewelers, retailers, wholesalers, and manufacturers that list with JBT. It's not a perfect indication of how many jewelers are out there, but you can see a decreasing trend line. And I think most of us are pretty aware that the number of clients in the marketplace, and this is not including our pawnbroker customers just to be real clear, isn't growing leaps and bounds. Insurable enterprises hasn't really been growing naturally, right? We know that. And so when you think about that from an insurance company perspective, what's hard about that is, hey, customers and exposures may not be growing, but expenses of running an insurance company just purely as an enterprise, they're not going away. Everything costs a little more every year, whether it's the staff or the technology, everything has a general inflationary impact. And that's long before you start thinking about the issues we've been dealing with in the last 12 months or so. Running an insurance company the size of Jewelers Mutual's insurance company, the premiums focused solely on the commercial, was a challenge and has been a challenge for quite some time. And at the same time, there are others who do a great job in the space. There are terrific competitors, so it's a highly competitive space, whether it's the Lloyd syndicates that many of you have worked with in the past, continue to work with, or Berkeley, who you also work with, and there's plenty of others. So it's not like we have the market all to ourselves. It wasn't by any stretch. And so when you're in that space and you have a limited product set, we have our block product, we have our BOP product, and you're trying to go to market every day, representing the jewelry industry, and you're going to all these industry events and you're saying we can do all these things, realizing we really only had, as a Jewelers Mutual insurance enterprise, the ability to serve a certain defined customer base. It really starts to, make you question, what are we going to do to grow? How are we going to find more customers? How are we going to add more value? Okay. And the general agency concept and everything that Scott just said about owning the customer experience and owning the data, but being really ruthlessly aware and objective about what we need to do to bring the best products and services, opening the door to a lot of things. Agency acquisitions brought more markets and partners to us, whether it was agents that we acquired and put into JMIS like Lunar or Gemstar, or Wexler now, with many different relationships, programs, particularly those in London, have essentially provided us a new marketplace of solutions. A new marketplace of solutions. I use that word kind of intentionally because when we think about marketplace in the Zing context, there's all kinds of solutions that Mike and the team are building out there for the jeweler. In many ways, the general agency concept is the same for you guys. It's the same thing. We want you to have access to the best products and services to serve your client. And the mindset that Scott brings and has since I've arrived here about making sure that we're willing to do all of these things without being the insurance company is a pretty big mindset shift for everybody on the JM team. And I'm very proud of the fact that the team and everybody at JM is really finding ways to both move from, yeah, we've been a good insurance company, we're still going to have an insurance set of products, but our goal now is to grow well beyond that. To me, that's a big step forward. Okay, so in that light, what does it mean not to be an insurance company anymore? So, If I thought about everything I was ever held accountable for at Liberty Mutual or AIG or Westfield Insurance, it always started with, almost invariably, it started with a combined ratio, right? How much premium, how much expense, loss, investment income, yay, nay, is it good, prior year reserves, blah, 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 okay? We still have those challenges every day. Those are still there, but our goal is to grow the number of customers that we serve and deepen the levels of products and services that we ultimately provide through a newer mechanism called JMPS. Don't always have to be the insurance company, right? So we used to think about premiums earned and written for JMIC. Now we're thinking about how many customers is this group and all of us collaborating to serve? Where are they? How do we add more? How do we make sure that we can be adding the most value to those customers? Not how much are we charging them and how much loss can we expect from them? That might be part of the equation, certainly, but if there's another product or service or another carrier that has a better product or a more broader or better appetite for something, boom, bring it in. I think, if I think back over the last year or two for some of the producers at JMIS who have said, hey, I'm struggling with this. We lost 4 accounts. And I said, what do you mean we lost them? He said, well, I had to move them to XYZ. And I said, did we keep them? And they said, well, yeah, I'm still writing them. They're part of the, okay, well, that may have to happen at times. The best product or service may be from somebody else. And we're okay with that. That's the really unique component of JM in its nutshell right there, is we're disrupting ourselves in an effort to try to better serve the customer. That's a really hard concept for a lot of senior leaders at a lot of other insurance companies, I can assure you, that struggle with that. All right. That's one of the things that I think puts us on the leading edge. So we used to think about losses day in and day out. We still do. I don't want to get you thought that we don't care about losses. We're still underwriting. John's going to talk a lot about how our underwriting programs operation is going to both underwrite for JM and it's going to underwrite on behalf of others. We're still going to be good underwriters. We need to be. Okay, we're still going to have insurance risk-taking capabilities and need to, but is that going to be the primary thing? What about deepening those relationships with a customer? What other products and services? JM is building out many different things. Scott talked a lot about Tina Olm's shipping operation. We got Jewelers programs. Sheila Bays joined us for our organization a year ago. She's got e-tailing capabilities. She's trying to help jewelers completely digitize and bring their business to a whole nother level. When we think about products and services, in this mindset, we're moving well beyond the risk of block and property and maybe the umbrella. And I know that's challenging for a lot of folks in this room in so much that may be the majority of what you do, but I also want to challenge another thing, which is most every one of you who've been doing this for as long as you have, many of you experience, you guys are already trusted advisors. You know a lot about how they need to run their business. What we want to try to do is outfit you with tools and products to become that on a broader level. We always needed to find and service customers that had a JMIC or JM's underwriting appetite. I first got here, 2 of the things that I noticed, one was we had really high quote and hit ratios. Really high. We quoted just about everything that came in the door, and almost everything that came in the door we wrote. It's a little bit of an extreme concept. But one of the reasons I originally was a little concerned about that from an underwriting perspective, because places where I've been in the past, whenever you quote everything and you write everything, then where's the underwriting, right? But the reality was a lot of it was from years and years of agents working clearly with the underwriting company to know exactly what was underwritable by JM and not really work on anything else. So that really limited the customers that we could achieve success with. And there were others in this room who weren't part of that world that were underwriting and providing value to customers that JM couldn't or wouldn't be able to help with other markets. That's why you're here now, because you brought value to that customer base. You know things that we didn't know. And the combination of those 2 things in this room is super powerful. And why we're really excited about the direction. The last point on moving forward is that entire relationship. And it says here on the right side, you probably can't read it, so I'm gonna, because I want to emphasize it. You see that jeweler at the middle, right? That little, diamond thing, and around it says agents, sales and marketing interface, whatever that looks like. Bringing the value to the jeweler through this group and through whatever technology solutions we believe we can make to enhance this value proposition is what JMPS is all about. Doesn't mean everything day one will be JMPS in the same way, but we're thinking about risk management. We're thinking about our commercial products. We're thinking about shipping. We're thinking about the Zing marketplace, point of sale. And I'm going to show you some things on the next slide that really stem mostly from the work that Marty helped us do a year ago, asking jewelers, what do they need? What do they need? What makes us relevant? Several years ago, I worked at another insurance company, and they brought up several stakeholders at a meeting kind of like this for us to listen. It was a customer, shareholder, and an analyst. We're like two different types of brokers, actually. Two brokers, a customer and an investor analyst. This was a publicly traded company. And one of the things that struck me was that the customer and the broker said, more and more of the things that I'm concerned about, you're not dealing with. Meaning I'm not worried about insurance as much as you're worried about insurance. I'm worried about these other things. If you could help me with these other things, I'd like to talk to you more. But relevance was high on the issue list for the customer and the broker. This actually is a broker. The Aon Group does a risk survey every year, and they rank what those risks are, and they rank how many of them are actually being delivered through an insurance solution, and less of them are. That's a problem for us, and I have a vested interest in trying to solve as many of those as possible. The great thing is, in our industry, with our knowledge about jewelry, we have a tremendous amount of that here, and our connections and the leadership position within the industry to deliver on a lot of that. So that's, at the heart of some of this, trying to give a little bit more color on when we say JMPS and bringing solutions, products like risk and insurance that we do every day today definitely are going to be our go-tos. They're going to help give us more and more feet in the door. But then we need to create the ability for us to transact that easier and easier so we can sell and deliver on all these other things as a trusted advisor. Not just insurance. Because insurance, frankly, in many spaces, probably less so in ours today, but probably more and more across the commercial space, is commoditized. I don't want to be a commodity. I don't think anybody else in here feels that they're a commodity either. And I think part of ingrained in everything that Scott said this morning and what we're trying to do with marketplace and the GA is about avoiding that and being continuing to be relevant and maybe more relevant than we are today. So, this last little bit about long-term success will be defined by the commitment and focus the entire customer's need, thinking about everything that they need. So one of the things I think is important to highlight is as you walk around the next day or two, think about what you know about your customers and what they do need. A couple of great additions have been made already by folks that look at us from outside in perspective. I think a lot of the Wechsler producers, they still see things a little bit like, hey, I haven't been part of JM forever. And one of the things that's come up is, boy, a lot of this feels retailer focused. What about wholesalers? I do a lot of business with wholesalers. How can we add more value to wholesalers? It's a great perspective. Like maybe we have, we spent a lot of time on the retail side, and JM had a lot of vested interest. Those are the kind of things that we're looking for and want to continue to sort of nurture with you as a group, and for us to distill down into solutions and things forward. So this is actually the survey results of work that Marty's group did for us a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And it's been on my sort of short list of thoughts every day since, because couple of things I think are noted. First of all, just orient you if you can't read it. The left side are the things that our survey respondents said cause them the most problems. So you figure this is on their mind, right? Regularly, what's on their mind. And not that we shouldn't, this is a good thing. There's some good news and bad news. Good news is, you know, business insurance on problem list isn't the highest order issue. It does add value on the right side. Everything on the percentage side is what adds value. It's adding value. So 74% say, yeah, I need it. It's important. So it's important, but it's not their number one problem. I would say that we sometimes joke at JM a little bit that we spend more time worrying about insurance than they do, or a lot more, okay? But the good news is there's a host of things on this list that by virtue of everything you heard this morning, you're going to hear more from John, you're going to hear more from folks throughout the next couple of days, and things that we haven't even begun to approach, we can solve some of these. Anybody see the shipping concept on that list? Shipping is highly problematic for jewelers. That's why we bought the shipping company. That's why we've invested, and that's also seeing growth. It's not hard to, you know, when you really listen to your customer, you ask them the right questions and try to figure out what's going on. If you find a solution to that, you can generally find success. And so this isn't a definitive slide by any stretch. This does not say that the next thing we're going to do is website management or e-commerce sales. We're already investing in both those things, but maybe not to the same level that we will later. But it's really to open up the frame of thinking that these are the kinds of questions we're going to ask ourselves beyond the insurance components, which we have to be good at. We've got to be best in class there. There's no doubt. But beyond that, what else can we do to drive relevance and probably build that moat around our relationship with our customer? When we first organized after the Wexler acquisition, I had a lot of folks asking me, there's a lot of challenges with, you know, customers and, you know, a lot of that. I see more and more, hopefully, that the value that this organization will have in bringing this kind of proposition will be problematic for the producers who are not in this room. Those who don't work with JMPS and don't work with our organization are going to have a lot smaller toolbox and not as much value than the folks in this room. That's part of my goal, is to, you know, see that comes to fruition. Yeah. I would put it in the business insurance world, but it doesn't pop as like its own safety and security concern from the survey itself. Maybe something to talk to Marty about if that was a question that was asked, or whether most of the respondents would have said that's something that I think of in the context of insurance. The survey was much more about running your business. In fact, maybe just further the point. You know, I sometimes joke, many of you guys probably had this problem. You know, how many of you been to a party and somebody's like, what do you do? And the first thing you say is, well, I'm in the insurance game, and then they're done. They're done talking to you. I thanked Scott, because I'm like, thank you for hiring me, because I can now comfortably and I think fairly accurately say I say I'm in the jewelry business. And that's what they go, oh, tell me more about that. And I say, I work for a company that provides business solutions to the jewelry industry. And I don't have to look very far to see folks at Jewelers Mutual across this world that are doing that. You provide business solutions. You help them run their businesses. We're here to help them be more profitable, be more successful, be more informed. All of those things that Scott was talking about earlier. The more we actually live into that, and I think we open ourselves up to that's our role. And I know getting quotes for block are hard right now, and I know that coverages are going to be tight, and pricing and competition, those are all going to continue to happen. But if we actually run ourselves like a company that's there to help them run their business, and again, I know many of you who have been doing this and know your customers as well as you do, you're already doing that. That's part of your value. That's part of why they like engaging you. Hey, Seth, who's doing the best? Who are your customers that, you know, getting the best deals on their gems? Where are they doing it? Where they're buying, you know, who are they doing? But you're doing that every day. What we want to do is take advantage of that and make it easier and build ultimately more of that into everything we do. The insurance piece should be the table stakes of what we offer, including the safety and security. Those we should lead on that, Mike, to your point. That's got to be huge. That should be our table stake. So let's talk a little bit about how we all relate. Let's put these things into context. Partnerships, okay? And it wasn't by accident that we named it JM Partner Solutions, because the general agency, much like the way that our marketplace is developed, is designed to enable the success of others. Some of them are our own products, like shipping is something we're doing for ourselves, but even that we're not doing the shipping, we're enabling UPS or FedEx to do the shipping. We're integrating. So starting on the left-hand side, producers, people who talk to the customer, the retail agent, connecting every day with your customers. That's what you're doing out there. There's no substitute for that, okay? There isn't like a website that's going to just, take 20 years of experience and relationship and say customer doesn't need that anymore. They need to come to this little electronic house. Nobody's under any illusion of that. All right. Recommending and being the trusted advisor is still a personal part of the personalized customer experience as we're seeing it. Okay. What we want to engage is JMPS as a general agency sitting in that middle wants to establish an easier architecture for that agent to get everything they need to be the deliverer of that personal customer experience, and partner with them. There may be things that JMPS can do with technology to help support the customer faster and easier for the agent. We do that with our service center at JMIC today. It's one quick example. But ultimately, the agent or producer is that personal connection, that counselor, that trusted advisor, and the JMPS concept is about linking those agents with all the right products and services, whatever that looks like. So today, it's pretty gangly. Okay, admittedly, we don't have every contract lined up, every partner solution, everything so that it's super easy the way we could dream it up. But think about today's world, different than 17 months ago. You're going to hear John talk about building a new product with a completely different marketplace who used to just be somebody that we would think of as a competing product on the market. And we're going to do that with people we didn't even have a relationship with 17 months ago. Making that easier and making that efficient and enabling it with technology, that's where we're focused on. Data and technology, and I know that it probably gets overused, but we can align a lot of things with partnerships and products, and we can do things, but at the end of the day, whether it's a carrier or a syndicate or any of you in this room or even our own teams, without the technology and the data, it won't be as valuable. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to steal Kelly and Rick's thunder, but there's a lot of work going on in that space, and we know that that's a critical aspect of our strategy. That's part of the linking. I'll maybe make this additional point on that, which is, we're not here to force people to do business in a way they don't want to do business. We will be flexible. We want to engage producers where they need to be engaged to get the best access to their customers. But I'm hoping and I'm betting that the solutions we will be building you'll want to engage it because it will make you better, it will make you more efficient, hopefully allow you to earn more income and drive success for your customers in ways that are not possible today. Proof's in the pudding, so I'm not trying to oversell that, but that's ultimately what my hope is and what my objective is. So carriers and service providers, JMIC is a big carrier service provider in the context of this, but it isn't the only one, and it won't be the only one. All the things that we said before about the mindset of making sure the right product and the right service are available. But it doesn't stop with, insurance. It extends well beyond all those other things. And it's really about, partnering with them. And that's a new challenge, converting some of our theoretically our competitors into partners. Something that's actually already happened. Scott made the comment earlier. That's happened before in the personal line space. We're betting it'll happen again in the commercial space. And again, going back to my point about what's exciting for me to be here, this is exciting stuff because we're actually transforming and disrupting the way commercial insurance gets done, not just in jewelry, but probably in other parts of there's other parts of the world where this very same concept will take hold. Will take hold. There's a lot of insurance companies out there, and not many of them perform at the level that we do from a return on equity perspective. It's expensive, it's hard, and to my earlier comment, they're losing product relevance by the minute. Those that are developing and generating valuable revenue and value for their customers and own that customer experience are going to be the winners. I'm betting on us. So how are we going to win? I talked a little bit about it, but I want to stress this point here in blue and this unite the finest producers. This is I love the way Mike and Scott always talk about, I want to be everywhere jewelry is sold for personalized. I'm working on a tighter version of that here. But when I think about JMPS and our GA strategy, it's fundamentally about uniting you all as producers with the best data and technology-enabled products and services. If that happens, I don't think we're beatable. Again, that's where I feel like people who aren't in this room are the ones that are going to struggle, not the ones in this room. You guys are going through the change, and there's a struggle there, Scott mentioned earlier, and I think there's no doubt all of us are going to experience that. We're all trying to do it, but that's also why we're taking a very deliberate approach. We're being very hopefully communicative, and if we're not, we're going to do more. But we're listening and we're trying to adjust. We're not just setting a plan of action and saying it's got to go. This is how it's going to be. Trying very hard to make sure that we can make progress and make sure that we're keeping all of our partners as closely aligned along the way. So I talked about technology in the last bit there. The economics have to work. This isn't about reducing costs and trying to minimize revenue or value for anybody who's an independent party or a producer in our organization. We want to do what's right for the customer. And if we're doing that and we're positioning you all to be more valuable, there should be more revenue in it for everybody, not less. But to Scott's earlier point, we have to work on the compensation piece, and we will. But it's not our intention. This is not about cost reduction. It's about growing customers and ultimately creating more value for them. The new partnerships, that is on its own path as well. We have relationships with all these folks, obviously, in some form or fashion, and we're going to continue to work on that. But there's an entirely different sort of viewpoint from their perspective that we're talking to them in this same context saying, hey, does JMPS make sense to you? How does this work for you? And if there's something that the challenge from the leadership team's perspective is, hey, uniting our partners, uniting our customers and our producers all into JMPS. There's a lot of different angles there. It's not entirely linear. But I think we're feeling very good about what we can do to enhance the value for our carriers and service providers, and then link in products and services that JM either already has or is intending to bring in. Those are all. I mean, it's not a long lead. The last point here I want to talk about. It's not as clearly articulated in that bottom right bullet. Something that I think Scott mentioned earlier about that moat. Right now, we have a ton of different products that we're delivering to the jewelers through you guys, through our direct models in different ways on personal lines. We are interfacing with our customers in very siloed ways without getting the value of that entire relationship. There's a couple of things. One is we are still not sure, and we are working on this every day, how much value an individual jeweler has, but we need to reward them for that value. We need to show that to them. They need to feel that. That's a competitive edge. There are lots of bit players we're competing with. I don't know on one that is working on all the different things that we're delivering on at JM today. But I do feel very confident that if we are able to link and show the customer that broader connected feel, and also show them that they get value the more that they do with Jewelers Mutual, we just get that much more competitive. It becomes a lot harder to be a bit player taking a piece here, taking a piece there, if they're working with us and feeling like, boy, I don't want to unplug this because that's tied to this, or these things all kind of connect in a way that's really meaningful for me. We're not doing that today. but we're investing quite a bit of time and energy. You're going to hear Kelly talk a little bit about the data that we're unifying to give us insights to that. But there's a whole nother level of sort of operationalizing that will take some time. Yeah, go ahead, Erica. Yeah. Not yet, but I would say that that concept is what I'm trying to articulate, that we want to be able to do that to whatever extent it's powerful and possible. Some places, certain products you can't truly link, but I think a lot of them you can. So it's not, I don't know, Mike, if that's something that Mark, did you hear the question? I don't know. Oh, he stepped out. Okay, so the marketplace, I don't think has a, hey, I'm doing all this, I get a volume discount, or I'm doing it with 3 different products, but we are looking at that very concept. Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Huh? Yeah. No, I don't think it has to be about saving them money all the time. I think the experience, you don't hear, Scott didn't say like saving, the cheap path is not what we're trying to create. That experience, I think, to your point, Howard, is pretty powerful. That's what we're really aiming for. But right now, like, I don't, when, I think Brian yesterday, McCluskey, in our AAC council discussion just said, hey, when we go to shows, how are we presenting ourselves? And it wasn't about Wexler and JM. I think his real question was like, all the things that we do, how does that come across to the jeweler? And I know Crystal wasn't in the meeting. Crystal Craycraft, if you haven't met her, is terrific. She's been going to a lot of our shows and is really conscious of our branding and our marketing and how we build our voice, if you will. But you're going to see that evolve so that our brand and our evolution as not just a JM insurance provider, but ultimately somebody that you can go to for a load of things. And it's intuitive. Like, I go to JM because they are my trusted advisor for lots of stuff. We're already delivering that in many ways, but we're not quite there when it comes to, we're not quite there in terms of the brand that we're amplifying into the market. Great question. Yeah, Giselle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I would say I'm sure that we have some that would be willing to do that. I'm not aware that we have any like current like person or group out there, but I would say we are taking steps, and you may hear some things about our intentions to sort of broadly engage the industry to start to elevate our brand in that same concept. And I think you're spot on. I mean, testimonials from customers who are getting value out of us beyond insurance. I don't know how many times in my first couple of years people said, I would meet with folks at an industry event and they would be like, oh, you're at Jewelers Mutual. You guys are amazing. You're this, you're that, you're this. And I'd say, oh, how long have we written your insurance, or what are we doing for you? And they're like, oh yeah, you guys can't help me. Yeah, I'm too big. I don't work with you guys. I mean, like extolling the virtues of all of us. And then I'd be like, how much are we doing with you? And they're like, oh, no. You work with the small people, right? The smaller retailers. And I'm not trying to denigrate JM. But I think the vast majority of our customers were in that smaller space. And we were seen, I think, by the industry in many ways as a group of, providing that insurance product for that reason. So we have this brand work to do. We definitely have it. Good question. Okay. Big building JMPS as a journey. I picked this slide. I was trying to figure out an image that would capture the notion of the reinventing or the restoration or the rebuilding of something iconic. And this is what I came up with. It's been going on for, I think they just finished it, right? Anybody been to London recently? And I was reading about the changes and how it's amazing how gorgeous they made all the restorations. But it was still up and running. Never went down. They didn't deconstruct it and rebuild it. They renovated it. So we're running today and we're doing new things. We got some scaffolds up, right? We're doing things differently. We haven't completely reinvented it, and it's going to take some time. So today, you've seen evidence. You're hearing us talk about, okay, Berkeley, Lloyd's. John's going to come up talk to you about some of those things. We've introduced and tried concepts, Flyreel and TruePick. Some of them with better results than others. We're working with HSB water sensors, Securitas on guard response, alarm response. Those are just starting and trying and learning and listening to customers, listening to agents, and trying to figure out services and ways to add more value. Some of them started with a different driver. Some of them were, hey, can we help reduce loss? How we make an inspection happen faster or easier? But at the end of the day, they've got to work for our customer. They've got to work for all of us in total. And point here is that we're going to keep trying and investing in new and new ways of doing business. But the big changes, if you're looking for like the coup de grace, like what's going to happen? Well, obviously, if to everything we've talked about, there's going to be a need to reinvent the technology and the processes that support a lot of our transactions today. That's at the heart of what drives value for our carrier partners and the agents, is a better way of interfacing. Talked a lot about that yesterday with the AAC. So you're going to hear more about that from Kelly and Rick and others. And not everything's figured out, but we have a tremendous amount of work. I think we've got some really good plans in place, and my expectation is in 2023, we'll be working on new technology of some sort in different parts of the JMPS platform. We also have to reinvent our partnerships with our carrier partners and some of you guys. To the extent that that makes sense and it serves your purposes and ours, we will do that. Don't have a timetable for that, but that's obviously, as we reinvent how we go to market and how we support carriers, those are relationships that will shift. Not to disrupt the flow or try to minimize relationships, but to try to do this for unique and combined mutual partnership like I had on the prior slide. And then, I didn't really want to forecast too much of the future because, to be honest with you, if we're really truly customer led and we're trying to find value by listening to them and listening to you all about what we can do, those future state issues are going to be coming at us. I'm not trying to overplan. The commitment there is we're going to use that mindset and we're going to be making these investments to strengthen our value proposition to the customers that we mutually serve. And that's why we call it JMPS, really, frankly. So how are we going to know when we're successful? We want to be growing the number of jewelers or customers. I put jewelers here, but you can put customers in here. Could be pawnbrokers, could be others. We want to deepen the number, even though it's put the last, we want to deepen the relationship we have with each one. I will be, my team knows, dog on a bone, what number of products are we selling? How many new customers, but how many new lines of coverage or services, whether it's shipping, Gem and Jewel, Zing Marketplace, Jewelers programs. When we keep tallying up the products, then we're going to be saying to ourselves, are we actually getting value? Are those being used? And are adding value? That's deepening the relationship. The second point here is really critical, which is unique. I want us to have proprietary things. One of the things that made Wexler successful, they had proprietary things that they themselves created and crafted with folks in London generally, and maybe in other places, to make their producer and their value proposition unique. We're in a specialized space. If we really own this and we know it better than anybody else, we should be the ones that come up with that. Again, a competitive advantage for anybody in this room that wants to work with JMPS. And then, the part about carriers and partners have to meet their long-term service or their long-term objective. It's got to work for everybody. There's not going to be a, this is partnership. My last little bit in there about agents, who are not in JMPS asking for appointments. I will really know that we have got this thing licked when I get those phone calls. When they say to themselves, I need to get in there to do what I want to do. You guys are already in here. I will feel really good, and there will be a smile on my face that day that I get that first phone call. Okay. I think I'm on time, Cayman. Yes, thumbs up. While I'm going to let John do the slow walk up here. Quick, any other questions before I let John come up and go a little deeper with you on some of the underwriting programs? Yeah, Mike. Yeah. So I'll go back to this slide, right? So there's two major drivers of our time horizon. One is technology and data and utilizing that in new ways, okay? We have some work teed up and some investment decisions to make that are going to drive the technology data side of it. And you're going to hear Kelly talk a little bit more about some ideas that we've worked very deeply on. These are not highlight like strategy stuff. It's like we've been really focused on making specific decisions. And I would expect that in 2022, we're going to be building out some things that in 2023, you all will be using in some form or fashion. May not be every product aspect, but I believe I'll be disappointed if that's not the case. Okay. The other aspect of it is the partnership changes and working with our carrier partners and working with you on a different relationship, general agency versus say a direct appointment. Right now we're a little clunky. If you want certain products, you got to be a sub-producer of Wexler or JMIS. That's not ideal. We want to tighten that arrangement around JMPS so that it's more unified, slick, easy, makes sense, and also ties in the relationships that we're building with other carrier partners, service providers, and others. So there's two major streams of work there that in 2022, I think we will have resolved. That's my ambition and that's my expectation. Is that helpful? Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there's a better way than we're doing today. So I appreciate that. That's a great call out. I don't think we are necessarily solving for that, but I think that's a great suggestion. And as we get more prolific with different carriers, I want you to feel like you understand so you can be in a positive, confident and credible position to talk to a customer. That's a great one. We'll take that one away. That's a good one. Thank you. All right, well, I'm not going anywhere. John's going to come up. I appreciate the time and look forward to spending the rest of the next 2 days with you guys. Thank you.